Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday. It is Sunday, September 26th. This is your Sunday submission from MMANews.com. The day after UFC 266 and some boxing news. I'm Ed Carbajal. You can follow me on Twitter at Carbazel. And if you like this video and the videos that we do up at the MMANews.com YouTube channel, make sure you do the thumbs up, bell notification, and check out our most recent interviews from the Canadian God, James Lynch. This week we have, my page flipped, Aspen Lad, Armin Sarukian, I'm sorry if I messed that up, and Julian Marquez, as well as some other fighters from upcoming cards and next couple of UFC Vegas fight nights. I think we got Marina Rodriguez on there. Interesting stuff to look at because of what's going on with the flyweight division, the women's flyweight division in the UFC, especially after the last night. So make sure you do that. Hook up the channel with some numbers. All right. Before we get into the UFC card, I want to talk just because there was some significant news in the world of heavyweight boxing yesterday. If you noticed early in the afternoon East Coast time, Alexander Usyk defeated Anthony Joshua via unanimous decision. So when you look at usually when boxing gets eyeballs on it outside of circus fights and the Paul brothers and MMA fighters doing boxing, it's usually the heavyweight division, right? Nothing like fall pollen to get your throat going in the morning in New Jersey. But the heavyweight division in boxing has always been the paramount, like, must see. Even if you're a casual boxing fan, everybody tunes into heavyweight boxing because that's just heavyweight champion of the world. It's just synonymous with combat sports, even predating mixed martial arts, because mixed martial arts is only almost 30 years old. Boxing's been around since like the late 1800s, the way that we know it anyway. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because we have Wilder Fury 3 soon, and one of the fights we were getting excited about was Fury Joshua, right? And then that got derailed because the Wilder's team decided to use the rematch clause in their contract or whatever legalities were behind it to kind of derail that. It was like, I'm pretty sure Bob Arum had something to do with that too, because this would have been something co-promoted with the Zone, and everybody's got to get their piece of the pie, right? That's the thing. Scott Coker alluded to it when he talked about cross promoting with other promotions. It's the TV deals and everyone else that has to show these things that everybody wants to see. So fight fans want to see these fights, but it's everybody else's contracts and stuff that kind of ruin it for the fans. So, but this thing with what happened yesterday. So now Usyk has inserted his name into that mix of Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. Even Andy Ruiz is kind of still in there because of how close he came to holding the belts that when he handed Joshua his first loss. So now he's got 2 losses to people that, and I'm pretty sure Alexander Usyk is undefeated. Let me just yeah, he's 18-0 now. So that was something. He was the mandatory challenger, I believe. Yeah, and that was why this fight was ready for Joshua to take as this, Joshua Fury thing was happening. So now we have to wonder how much do you want to see Joshua Fury? Especially we don't know what's going to happen with Wilder Fury 3. They're technically, it was a draw, then Fury won. This last one is it's trilogy. For me, trilogy fights like video game rules. Best 2 out of 3, and we're done. So, I'm gonna repeat that when we look at the 7 takeaways from UFC 266. But the thing about it is, like now, depending on what happens in October with Wilder and Fury again, who knows who's gonna win, because Deontay Wilder has that. As much as you want to criticize his skill as for the sweet science is boxer versus brawler or power puncher, he is a power puncher, and if anything has erected the phrase puncher's chance, it's because of power punchers. And he did drop him in that first fight, right? Um, Second one was all Fury. So this one's definitely gonna two guys that are now familiar with each other. It really could go either way. So winner of that will probably, to keep things going in the world of heavyweight boxing. Well, now Usyk's the guy. Josh was probably going to rematch it. This is the thing about boxing that people do get tired of, and people keep saying boxing is dead, and that's why MMA is the fastest growing sport, because the thing about and we're talking about the legalities of how promoters do things and stuff like that. I actually had Eric McGracken on the podcast that I do, who runs a combat sports law blog. If you it's on Coast to Coast Combat Hour, so go check that out. I've shared it on my Twitter, so you can check it out there. But the thing about that was like we talked about how the differences between combat sports and how MMA can get away with more versus boxing, but it's weird. It's weird looking at it because as a fan, you get more of the fights you want to see in MMA most of the time. And in boxing, there's a lot of back and forth before eventually we get to see the fights that we want to see. So it's going to be interesting what happens after October in the heavyweight division of boxing. But I just wanted to touch on that before we got into UFC 266. So I'll leave that where it is. And let's bring up the 7 takeaways from UFC 266 over at MMANews.com. We have the full results there with highlights and videos and stuff like that. I'm not normally I would bring that up for you, but you know how that goes if you've been following along with these Sunday submissions. So there's a lot to take away, and I always say that, and I always write that in the beginning too. But and it's not on here, but I'm going to mention it now because this is for the video, and I know we've written about it a lot when it happened. How my reaction to the whole Jon Jones thing on International Fight Week. If you didn't know that UFC 266 Fight Week was International Fight Week for the UFC, and shout out to Matt Hawkins, whose boots on the ground went there for it. He's been to every single International Fight Week, and he has verified what I have been saying on our podcast for the longest, which is International Fight Week is not worth going to anymore. It's I mean they still do the Hall of Fame ceremony, and they do what they call a fan expo. I guess it's a fan expo. I don't even know. I really don't know what to call it anymore. Matt described it as just lining up fighters at a storefront with a magic marker in hand, and you come and you take your picture and do the selfie, and then you move on. And there's a long line for that. Before the sale to Endeavor, WMEIMG, UFC International Fight Week was a fucking party, man. I mean, best one ever, and Matt agrees with me on this because he's been to all of them. Best one ever, 2015 UFC International Fight Week. It was UFC 189. It was when McGregor fought Chad Mendes, the split lip Robbie Lawler, Roy McDonald fight. Like, it was just, it's an amazing, there's events, fights leading up to the fight. Like Invicta there was an Invicta event. There's a UFC Fight Night event. And then there was the pay-per-view event. It was just, and then there was all kinds of stuff going on, music, free parties, all that stuff. And we lost all that. I mean, it's definitely, this is my opinion. Don't hate on MMA News for this. And I'm saying that because somebody asked a question last week about why don't I have ESPN Plus? Because there's 9 or 10 other people. I mean, most of MMA News is UFC news. You don't need me to have an ESPN Plus so they can write about the 20,000 things everyone else is writing about that happens on there. So that's why I don't have ESPN Plus. I don't like the money grab that I mean, they've gotten so big, and I know that's why they've gotten so big. But that doesn't mean I want to throw into that. Everything winds up on Fight Pass. I love UFC Fight Pass. I went to a Fight Pass party the last time I was in Vegas in 2016. That's how much I like UFC Fight Pass, because everything they do is going to eventually wind up on Fight Pass. So, but enough about that. I'm digressing. The Jon Jones thing, International Fight Week. I mean, he won an award and went out and partied. And of course, he got in trouble with the law. I mean, it's almost like my reaction is the same as Dana White's. You can't bring this guy to Vegas. It's almost expected when Jones comes to Las Vegas, it's just expect trouble. I think he said something like he can't handle Las Vegas. Like, it's funny, when I first went to Las Vegas, a local once said to me, the local person said to me, if you can come to Las Vegas for a week, which I did, and not become a degenerate or like, just sick or, wake up hungover and just, ruin your health or whatever, then you're probably going to be all right to come back and be out there. Apparently Jon Jones is not that guy. I'm tired of it. I'm just like Dana White's reaction is the same as me. I'm just like, figures. I don't want to write about it. I don't want to read about it. He got himself in trouble, and I'm sure we're going to read plenty more about that as days, upcoming days. We get more news out of it because that happened Thursday night into Friday. Government takes the weekend off, so as we get rolling during the week, I'm sure we'll hear more than we want to hear about that. So the 7 takeaways that I cared about, everybody cared about. I mean, we had 2 title fights on this card, but you if you were a casual fan, you probably really didn't know it because Nick Diaz made his return to the cage after taking a lot of time off. 2015, I wrote about Anderson Silva, UFC. That was Anderson Silva's return after his leg break. So that was like his first fight back, and it was a big deal. It got turned over to a no contest because of somebody popped top for something. I think Diaz weed and Anderson Silva had some sort of something in them. So it got turned over to a no contest, which sucked, but it was still fun for the fans. A great fight for fans. I mean, that meme that you see of Nick Diaz laying down, with the hand up like that, it's from that fight. So, but the funny thing about his return, we got to see the kids. He's younger than me, but Nick Diaz has been fighting since he was 18 years old. All right. I think he started fighting in 2000, 2001, and here we are in 2021. I mentioned him twice in this because obviously, so I told you guys, if you haven't been following this, when I write these 7 takeaways, I usually start it on fight week. And my first takeaway early in the week was just how much people were focused on the Diaz Lawler fight over the 2 title fights, which were awesome. I mentioned those. I'm going to get to those in a bit. But this card, UFC 266, was like a real, like an OG fight fans card. You know what I mean? Like the UFC doesn't really put these together as often as we'd like. But this fight, like from the first fight to the end, again, the best example, because he's a super fan, is a guy I do my co-host the podcast with me, Matt Hawkins. He was on the fence about flying out there, but when he looked at the card, he was like, you had Roxanne Modafferi. You see that, I'm going to get to that in a minute. Roxanne Modafferi was on there. I mean, the 2 title fights plus the Diaz Lawler fight, which was their second fight. They're 1-1 now against each other. That's another takeaway on here. I'll get more into detail about that. But just overall, it's a fun card. It was a fun card. And just to backtrack on my ESPN Plus thing, they kind of screwed some people over. They made it a little harder to watch than normal because I know college football and the bids, all the stick and ball sports takes precedence over combat sports most of the time. But what are you gonna do, right? Like that's just the way that things are. Not everybody is as deep a fight fan as I am or other people. So they put the mid prelims on ESPN News, which really pissed me off because I had trouble watching them since I have freaking dickbag Comcast wanted me to pay more money just so I could stream ESPN News. So I had to go off of highlights and stuff and wait for the pay-per-view to start, to watch it where I go watch it. But that's neither here nor there. The Nick Diaz return was obviously the biggest deal all week of the card, even with Jon Jones messing around. So I feel like it overshadowed some of the great things that happened, but thank God the 2 title fights were so awesome that, we still watched them. So one of the things I mentioned Eric McGracken, how he was on the podcast. He tweeted out how Roxanne Modafferi, she didn't get a lot of love. This was her 44th fight. She's been fighting since 2003. She's always positive. She's got a lot of losses on her record. She's got wins too. She's never seems to complain or I mean, look at that face. She's just happy as can be. And she put this tweet out because she says, I got to tell Robbie Lawler that his old fights inspired me to start fighting 18 years ago. 49th fight. I said 44. I'll have to correct that. But I mean, here's on my 49th fight. 49th fight. So I mean, I looked up her record on Wikipedia. So that number, that's why I'm off on it. So she just fought 49, almost 50 fights. She's been fighting for a long time, since 2003, probably earlier. Not to mention her jiu-jitsu stuff, and she's a black belt. She teaches, and she was on the prelims. Didn't get enough love, but man, if she I felt bad. I'm at the point that now when she loses, I'm sad for her because she's always so positive. I mean, she lost her fight to Taylor Santos, but this is still a milestone. The fact that she's been fighting that long, it really didn't get him enough recognition. And again, Eric McGracken, CombatSportsLaw.com. Check out his blog. He pointed that out because he's been running his blog and stuff longer than I've been involved in this sport and covering it. So I just thought she deserves some recognition. So that's why I put, it's the only image in this post, and that's why she's there, because she lost. But listen, losses are lessons. So in the world of martial arts, losses are lessons, and the Happy Warrior is definitely somebody that is a living example of that life, living that life. Dan Hooker and Nasrat Hakparek. I'm spelling his name. I can't pronounce his name. The guy that looks like Kelvin Gastelum. He the both of them had such a hard time getting there. I know Dan Hooker went into some more detail with Megan O'Leary, but during the broadcast, they mentioned, Paul Felder mentioned, the day before their weigh-ins is when they finally got to Vegas, and they still made their weigh in, and they fought all those 3 rounds. I mean, Hooker won the fight, but I mean, again, talking about living that life, these guys absolutely. I mean, so I think someone lost a family member. There's a funeral, like stuff like that. I mean, I know people that have pulled out of fights because they had to deal with stuff like that. It's just, I mean, not for nothing personally. If I was dealing with that, I don't think I could focus on. I mean, I've gone through some serious stuff and trained, but I definitely super impressed with the just these fighters, the focus of these fighters. Sorry, that my door just slammed because I got a draft going through the apartment. The the focus of these fighters, they always impress me with just their, like, knowing that this is the path that they're going to be on. They're going to be on. This is, again, Nate Diaz, Roxanne, and these gentlemen. So shout out to both of them for just showing up to do this. I mean, it's not just for the fans they're putting on a show. There's something in them that this is something I have to do, and they do it, and that's super rare, especially nowadays when you talk to people. Just super rare to see. So I'm glad they did it. And the women's flyweight problem. So it's fun. It was through James Lynch. I believe it's on our YouTube channel when he spoke with Marina Rodriguez, and she talks about the women's strawweight division. So when you look at the women's strawweight division, you got Rose, Zhang Weili, Joanna. I forget who else is in that mix, but Carla Esparza, who a lot of people thought should have gotten the title fight. But when you look at that, there is like, it's the same people fighting over and over again, pay-per-views. It's the same circle of people. It's just a small group, and we just keep recycling those fights while all these other fighters are fighting their way up. And Marina Rodriguez is one of them, which is why she brought that up. And we're starting to see that in the women's flyweight division as a women's flyweight problem. Jessica Andrade, again, she's working her way up. We just saw her. I mean, I don't know who else is out there that's gonna be a Valentina Shevchenko, right? Like right now, she just seems to be so dominant in this division. I don't see it. It actually makes me think there's more of a reason to make the Amanda Nunes Shevchenko fight happen again, because They're literally 145, 135, 125 for the women's divisions. Two names: Nunes, Shevchenko. That's it. So make it. I mean, make it a super fight. They did a BMF title. Make it a am I going to get in trouble if I say make a bad bitch fight? Make a badass bitch title, badass whatever. Uh, you know, you could say if it's a BMF or a bad bitch BB, whatever you want to call it, do it. Do something like that. Um, and this quote with the result from Lawler and Diaz. I mean that fight. Nick Diaz is such a weird fighter. Like, you can't even emulate the way he fights. He outstruck. They kept reading off the numbers during the pay per view. He outstruck Robbie Lawler. I'm pretty sure that it was like over 200 or something like that by the time the finish came. But Lawler just kept moving towards him. I thought Diaz was going to win a decision, to be honest with you. When I submitted my picks over to MMANews.com, one of the things that stood out was something always happens when I record with that door slam. When I did the podcast, a spider dropped on me, and then freaking an earthquake happened. So it is what it is. But his way of boxing and just reaching out, just to kind of fit his hand. It's almost like some weird Wing Chun sticky hands type of thing that he does, where he counter punches, and he was landing. I mean, Robbie Lawler's face was red, and it's crazy that Daniel Cormier, when the finish came for Lawler with the check right hook, that Daniel Cormier remembered that it was the same punch. It was similarly the same finish when Nick Diaz finished Robbie Lawler in their first fight. So, and it's just like a weird, poetic something about this sport, man. So they're 1-1 against each other, and I don't think we're going to get a third one. That quote, I had it coming. Nick Diaz just seems to, he's got this weird, like, down on himself anti-hero thing going, where he's just like wants to be that guy that's, the walking off into the sunset alone or whatever. He had a t-shirt on at the weigh-ins that said something about a guy can't stand by himself, something about being able to face hardships and stuff like that. And it just looks like, I mean, he looked like he was enjoying himself at some points, but there was like a weird sadness coming into the fight. And as good as he did, I mean, I thought if that went 5 rounds away, it would. I mean, the way that it did, I feel like that would have probably had a nod going towards Nick Diaz, but Robbie Lawler was all there for it. I mean, and again, I mentioned UFC 189, the split lip Robbie Lawler. He came there and took it and just started throwing every punch for the fences. And that one right hand that landed, sat Diaz down. He started bleeding from his nose. And listen, when you get older, it happens at different times for everybody. Maybe it's due to inactivity or what have you, but Lawler having taken damage a lot and continuing to take it versus the time that Nick Diaz had off, and he got time to rest and recover and just start to feel like a fighter. Jillian DeCourcy just tweeted it out this morning. Sometimes there's no, it's not quitting. It's just realizing, like, listen, maybe I don't want to get back up and keep taking more punishment. I think I've had enough. I mean, that's just something. It's like a maturity. And maybe Nick Diaz, again, fighting since he was 18, damn near 22 years. There's fighters coming into the sport that age. So, I don't think we'll see him a rematch or whatever. People are talking about do Nick Diaz down Cerrone or something like that. Listen, if they want to do it, let them do it. That's all I can say about that. But Lauren Murphy, this one was another one that kind of made me sad. She fought her way. I wrote in my picks how she fought her way. She got getting bullied on Eddie Alvarez treated her like shit on the Ultimate Fighter show, and then fighting her way up to this point last night to face Valentina Shevchenko, and I almost feel bad saying it, but like we all saw it happening that way. And she was super confident going in at the pre-fight press conference. She was even like, "I have nothing to lose. If Valentina doesn't, look superhuman against me, and I still lose, something to that effect. Like if she lost, but lost any other way than it would have happened, then she would have still won somehow. But that didn't happen, unfortunately. I mean, it sucked to see, like, you get behind someone like Lauren Murphy, and then you see him lose like that. I mean, Shevchenko is just one thing me and Matt noticed when we were doing our preview on our podcast was that, when you see these fighters become champions, you see them in Modelo commercials, and you see them doing Toyo tire commercials, and all this other stuff, and when you see stuff of Valentina Shevchenko, social media or whatever, she she does takes her little Instagram thirst trap photos, but 98% of everything else you see about her when she's not in fight week or fight camp, she's just training, or she's doing a seminar and she's training, or she's firing a gun. She's just a that's a deadly woman. It's a deadly woman. And they're talking about, somebody asked her about fighting the Paul brothers at the pre-fight press conference, and she didn't even let him finish. She was just like, I'd put him away. No, that's a scary woman. I mean, that's, again, Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko. I hope it happens. I hope you do. I hope it happens. And then the main event, again, everybody was focused on Diaz, Lawler, and that was a cool fight. And whatever happened there. It was a nice build up, whatever. But I feel like this wasn't really the focus up until it happened, especially that third round. I mentioned, so Alexander Volkanovski escaped guillotine, triangle, and a Darce choke. I think that's all of the ones that he got out of that I remember. He might have gone for 2 Darce chokes. Or no, it was a head and arm guillotine, and he's transitioned to the Darce, or straight to doesn't matter. Ortega's got that lanky build that he can, which is why his submissions are so tight. And the first one, that guillotine, that mounted guillotine, where Volkanovski was doing this with his legs to get out of it. They even asked him afterward, like, how tight was it? How did it feel? And he said it felt like I was about to lose the title. I don't know how he survived it. I think it was just, as a jiu-jitsu guy myself, I can tell you, you get to a point where you don't, if you can try for a certain amount, if you get locked in a submission, and you're in a fight, especially for a title fight, there's a chess game you have to play, especially, I mean, you're midway through round 3. It's 5 fights, but that happened, and that was the first submission attempt in like round 3. So we'll say halfway through, that you have to say, I can't burn myself out trying to get this if he's not going to tap, or the referee's not jumping in or what have you. So you have to move on to something else. And that's where we saw Brian Ortega's intelligence, grappling intelligence, where he transitioned to something else. And the triangle was super tight, and that guillotine was super tight. And I think it was just sheer Volkanovski violence that got him out of there. I'm not going to lie. After the win, Alexander Volkanovski kind of like called out all of like fans, media, and what have you, and that were kind of like questioning, because the way it happened with getting the title through Holloway and stuff like that. It's kind of like, all right, you win by decision, but eventually when I don't want to say it was domination, but the fact that because he wasn't, I mean, it was a great fight, which I wasn't expecting it to be like this, as good as it was. But just that back and forth, that's the fact that he fought through all of that and came out on top. That's definitely something to behold and tip the hat, recognize him as a true featherweight champion. Whoever he gets next, I honestly, I'm all for what. I'm on the Alexander Volkanovski train. Like, I'm a fan now. You don't have to convince me, sir. You've definitely won me over. I will defend the fact that you're the legit champion. If anybody asks me from now on, again, I mean, I didn't care, but after last night, there's definitely something interesting fights to make. That's for sure. As far as Brian Ortega, man, I mean, he's definitely, the dude fought like a, he wanted it. It's just it just wasn't happening for him. And that's pretty much it for me. We got Bellator coming up, Bellator 267 coming up Friday. We got Douglas Lima, Michael Van Page, another UFC fight night coming soon. And that's it for me. I'll let you get to your football on Sunday. There's none of it's probably on ESPN News. Well, maybe it is. Who cares? Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, make sure you do the thumbs up, bell notification for the MMANews.com YouTube channel. Go to MMANews.com to check out the full results and highlights from UFC 266. And if you like the stuff that I do and you want to check out that podcast and all this commentary that I do at all the places I contribute to, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Carbazel. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm tapping out. Peace.